We'll fuck all the dice, bring worlds to life. Masters of the dungeon cutting like a knife. Heroes, villains, lord, share. Learn the craft, magic in the air.
Welcome to Masters of the Dungeon, the podcast where game masters get deeply nerdy about running tabletop RPGs. My name is Nacho, and this week I am joined by Ryan Doyle from the Verdigris Table. Ryan is a YouTuber, an author, and now 1/3 of the Landlocked Warlocks. Hey man.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. So before we dive in, just in case some people aren't aware who you are, just tell us a little bit about Verdigris Table and your books and your new venture.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel where I help new and experienced dungeon masters mostly. I'm getting a little bit back to basics now that there's a new edition out. I'm focusing in on character creation for a little bit, but I like to present actionable advice and a lot of options so that people can make informed choices. There's a lot of this is the one true way to play D&D and everybody else is wrong out there, and I am in favor of the variety pack. I recently came out with a book, The Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation, to one, help with character creation to make more interesting characters, and two, to make those characters connect to the world and the story that the dungeon master is running or telling or building with their players. So I'm a big fan of that. I've got to sit down with a lot of awesome people, including yourself, to use it, and that's been a great time. I'm not the only person who thinks it's cool, but I definitely think it's cool, but I made it, so I don't count. I'm biased. And yeah, more and more, we're leaning into the landlocked warlocks. Me and Brad from Dire Den and GM Jim from Wizards and Wormslingers are having a talk show. It's pretty casual. It's literally called Casual Friday. So we'll talk about the news of the day to a degree, or whatever is new and interesting in the world of TTRPGs and more often than not D&D, because you can't get away from it. And we also do the one-page one-shot club, which I think soon may stray away from the one-page format, but we've been doing a bunch of one-shots and learning a lot from a bunch of different like game designs and genres, and it's been, again, I like the variety pack. Very fun time.
Yeah, you did one where you're all seagulls.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Looked fun.
Ton of fun. The most ridiculous premises that, like, just like the stupid idea that you're like, maybe it could be like a room in a dungeon or like a little throwaway joke or something. It's like, this can be the premise of one singular night, and like, oh, just go nuts. Leave it all on the table. There's no follow up to this. If you don't do it tonight, these characters are done. I really have come back to appreciate the one shot. It's not just a trap to trick people into getting into your D&D campaign anymore.
No, it is, the one shot. It's just satisfying to have a, well, I don't know how many games we've run that we've never have just phased out, never completed. So it is nice to have a game that has a conclusion sometimes, I find.
Yes. Yeah. It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Yeah, definitely. Check out Landlocked Warlocks. That is a tongue twister. I understand that wasn't your first choice of names Brad came up with, but yeah, check out their Casual Friday. It's a really good community. It's a fun chat. It's where I am now getting all my D&D news, even though it comes out on a Saturday morning for me, which I constantly make a joke about, but it never seems to get old.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. The benefit of living on the other side of the world.
And I will say it's been quite a good community. Like we're we're small in by a lot of measures. Like if you were all standing in front of me as I was speaking, I would feel much more nervous. It's not nobody, but there's a lot of cool people in chat. Like there are times where I am having a difficult time focusing on the conversation I am having because you guys are having another conversation
Yeah.
that is fun. There's a lot of cool creative folks who showing up pretty consistently and more. So yeah, come hang out. Even if we're boring, the rest of the crowd's having a good time in chat.
No, you guys have a good chemistry. You can tell you're all on the same page, and yeah, maybe give the steering wheel back to Jim.
It's funny. It's a good. I obviously I like these guys because I'm working with them and playing games with them more and more. But I like to be pretty fair and balanced and offer a bunch of opinions, and so do they. Particularly Brad is very insightful and nuanced. So a couple weeks into it, I'm like, oh, I am the wacky color commentary guy. Like I gotta, find my own, niche here. You don't want a party full of faces. Someone's got to be good at lockpicking and throwing down.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'll pop off once in a while. I'll be the crazy guy. It's the role I'm born to play.
We have similar roles, I think. In my little trio of Fred and AJ, I am also the bard / rogue of the group. Whereas, obviously, AJ is more the scribe and lore master, and Fred is just the voice of reason.
You guys, if Fred's the voice of reason, you guys are in trouble. You can tell him I said
that. I'm sure he'll get back to him. All right, so before we dive in, I have a little section. Something that I was inspired by your D20 questions when I was first came up for the idea of this podcast. Because this is such a cool idea, like sitting down with other game masters, and because not two game masters are the same, and we are storytellers, and there are so many different YouTubes and podcasts out there about like how to game master. But I like the idea of telling stories rather than giving lessons, our experiences behind the screen and how we've dealt with certain things and stuff like that. So you were a big inspiration to the beginning of this podcast for me. So thanks to your D20 question thing that you do on YouTube. So, but before we dive in, I have my own little gimmick. It is called the Game Master Backstory, which has not dated well because ideals, bonds, and flaws are no longer included in the 2024 handbook.
Well, even better. Now it's yours.
Yeah, no, it's mine. Okay. So we're going to go through your ideals, your bonds, and your flaws of being a game master.
Cool.
So
I like it.
Your ideal. Is there a core philosophy that shapes how you approach being a game master?
I have like a passive and an active, like maybe a conscious and subconscious philosophy that dovetail quite nicely. And that might be a chicken and the egg question, but I like presenting the players with choices. I think a lot of these railroad versus sandbox conversations are actually about giving the players meaningful options. There's a door to the left, there's a door to the right. Toss a coin, pick one. That's not an interesting choice or a meaningful choice. Providing the players with a lot of information and letting them impact the world and the story. Like I have come to the point where I am willing to let my players literally burn the world down. It's happened to me twice, which is not a lot of times, but is a lot of times to have to restart. But that is my goal, to be as exactly the right amount and kind of prepared to allow them to do just about anything. And from like the out of game, like unconscious kind of like game master, maybe even dark people pleaser side of it, like I want to make sure that everyone around the table is having a good time. So I also kind of let the players, in a large sense, influence the tone of play. So I often end up running more beer and pretzels, metagamey, going off on divergent talks about whatever we were watching on Netflix or something. I run a looser game that I think a lot of people at least advocate for, if not actually want.
Yeah.
But I do that because that's what makes people happy most of the time.
Mhm.
At least the people I play with, which has been a large variety of people now. I've moved around a lot.
Yeah.
I've played online with a bunch of people. But yeah, I want to make sure that everybody's happy.
That's good philosophy. Because you play, how many games a week are you running?
I've got 2 solid games, and then the One Page One Shot Club, which it's a rotating game master sort of setup there. So let's say I play 2.25 games a week,
Yeah.
and then occasionally other stuff.
That is quite a common philosophy. I think Brad summed that a similar thing up as being, don't be precious with your darlings. Yeah, so
Yes.
because you soon learn that players will burn everything down. So, like, yeah, if you do all your prep just for the players to make one, specific decision, and they decide to not, and they might not go with it just because they didn't like the voice that you used for one particular NPC, then you have to be prepared to rip that apart.
I've been there. It's like I don't know what Ryan just did to convince you that
Yeah.
the mayor of Lawful Goodtown is secretly the bad guy. I don't know what in my face or my voice made you all decide that, but that was not my intention. Do I clear this up, or now that's the truth?
Yeah. I have a useless poker face, and I laugh a lot when I'm nervous, or I smirk when I'm nervous.
Hmm.
So I hear a lot of the time my players going, "No, he's smirking. That's nah." And I'm like, "No, that's not what I'm trying to do." And then the more I deny it, they're like, "Yeah." Nah. So I just start digging a deeper hole. So, all right, let's move on to your bond. Is there a part of being a game master that you feel especially connected to or passionate about?
I really enjoy, especially lately. It's that time of year, and whatever. I have some personal stuff coming up, so I've been very mindful of just the value of getting together with people for no other reason than to just have a good time.
Hmm.
That is super valuable and whatever hard to monetize. So it's easy to cast aside and not make a priority. But hanging out with friends and family for a couple hours just to tell stories together and maybe eat some snacks and have some laughs, super super powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's a social connection. I have a game that I have a friend of mine that went through kind of a dark period and kind of withdrew and didn't socialize. And I have recently got him back into playing Dungeons and Dragons, and
Mm.
that's a game that's very special to me because I know he is coming around my house every 2 weeks, and he is being social and he is having a good time, and I feel like I'm doing, it's something that I don't want to cancel because I feel like I'm being a good friend by doing this game, and it's providing, yeah, socializing is an important part of the game that people soon forget. So
Yeah,
yeah, I hear you there. Yeah.
DMing is a service, and like you are literally bringing people together.
Mm.
And I mean, I guess it depends what you do in your day to day life, but there's not a ton of opportunities. There's not a lot of places where you can say that like that's literally what you're doing. But when you run a game, you're creating a space for people to
Mm.
let loose and have a good time and exercise some creative skills that they don't necessarily get to
Yeah.
use in their day to day lives. And yeah, and they know they're coming back in 2 weeks, which means a lot to some people at some points in their life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that Dungeons and Dragons took off so big during the COVID
Mm,
pandemic.
mm.
Because we suddenly all needed to have something to be social about, and this thing was it. So the numbers don't lie there. Okay, your flaw. What's one part of your game master style that you're currently trying to improve or refine?
So I've been working on doing less lately to the point where I might be done. I might have overcorrected now, and I might have to focus back in on like pacing and driving the action. But I have been actively leaving more space and being more comfortable with silences and letting the players debate the next course of action for longer than I used to. I used to feel like if things were slowing down and there was nothing really like punchy happening for a couple minutes, it was my job to hit the gas, and that's true occasionally. But I found if I back off and create a vacuum, people step forward to fill that space, and maybe it
Mm.
doesn't happen instantly. Maybe it takes longer than some part of my DM lizard brain is comfortable allowing, but I've been doing that more and more.
I think if you hear silence at the table, sometimes you think you're doing a bad job and the players aren't having a good time, but that's not necessarily the case. That's just an expectation we have as a game master. And
Yeah.
silence, yeah, like you say, silence will help drive your game forward sometimes because they'll be sitting there and they'll be thinking about the decisions they're going to make and they'll talk amongst themselves. I do that as well. I fill empty silence with unnecessary babble where I should just probably shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because it goes against almost the training that you're giving yourself for whatever your however many years of DMing you have behind you. And it's interesting. I was listening to you guys talk to Reagan, the experience of like live streaming almost like the whole time he's run games,
Yep.
which is crazy to me. But like the fear of dead air and like having to fill up that space. I think all dungeon masters experience, even if they don't have an audience, they're trying to entertain. But like again, that stepping back to the point where it's like, oh boy, so I hope someone does something. Has been super rewarding for me lately.
Yeah. No. Starting your DM career live streaming is insane. But yeah, that's what that guy did, and he loves it. It's interesting how we are all in the same job, but there's so many different ways to do this job.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Okay, so today I thought we'll get into our topic. Running published adventures. You built your YouTube channel pretty much giving advice to game masters or dungeon masters, whatever you prefer, on how to run published adventures like Lost Mine of Phandelver, Sunless Citadel. It's how you came on to my radar. And you give really solid advice. In fact, I want to say that the AI even knows who you are. If you type Lost Mine of Phandelver into Copilot, your face comes up as a suggested video. So well done. You have definitely made your stamp.
I mean, I appreciate that as a measure of success. It makes me deeply uncomfortable that the robots know where to find me. But
yeah. Yeah. So, what are the advantages of running published adventures compared to homebrew?
I think, especially for beginners, it allows you to focus in on some other skills rather than world building. I think wherever you are in your dungeon master career, what you were saying earlier, you were quoting Brad of like, don't be precious with your darlings. Like, I'm willing to let this world burn down. I mean, I do it in my homebrew too, but I am willing to toss this book aside and pick up another one. And I'm willing to allow you to break and redefine all of this stuff because it's not mine in the first place. And that's not necessary for me to get to that point, but it is a real shortcut. So I think that's the value for a lot of folks listening to this who haven't picked up a published adventure in years.
Mm.
There is a certain freedom. I think a lot of people go into it thinking it's going to be much more restrictive. But one, if you have experience under your belt, you're going to instantly decide what you're going to change, and you can change it. That's like a head start. And then again, it provides freedom to be like, yeah, I have all of this and a shelf full of other stuff and the homebrew thing that I've been thinking about, in the shower or when I drift off to sleep.
Mm.
So this world is huge. Take your choice, players.
I think one thing I like about published adventures, and I know you've hit on this before in one of your videos a while back, shared experiences with the community. It invites you into into a bigger community where I've met people like yourself, AJ, Fred, and we're all good friends now, because we all have shared experiences through this game. And a lot of that is to do with published adventures, because we've all had experiences with Meepo, or
Mhm.
you know what I mean? We've all come across Clark, or we've all had our own take on the Black Spider. We've all dealt with Strahd. So there's that kind of that shared community that suddenly you're running a published adventure, and you can get so much support, like YouTube channels like yourself, or Discord communities, or whatever. And compared to a lot of fandoms that I've dealt with in my life, I'm a big nerd, as people now know through all these podcasts. You know, yeah. Despite what everyone sees now with on the news cycles or whatever, the D&D community, I think, is one of the nicest and most open-armed and friendliest communities I've come across.
1,000%. 1,000%.
So, yeah, I think one of my things I think is a benefit of a published adventure is you're partaking in a shared experience of a massive world, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I did recently do a video of like why you should run published adventures aimed at people who have a ton of experience and have been homebrewing everything forever. And that's a huge one, whether it's there's 30 free versions of the map to the Cragmaw hideout, like whatever they keep on the Borderlands. So I can keep my players entertained and guessing and save myself hours of tedium on dungeon drafts or whatever I'm using. But it's also after the fact. Hey, we've been to the same places. We experienced different versions of them, which makes it more interesting, not less interesting to me, in my mind.
Yeah.
But we have a common experience. I am a little to a lot less interested in the Dungeon Master's homebrew world that I have no common experience with.
Mm.
You made a cool thing. Cool. I'm interested to a degree, but where like the war stories that I have no frame of reference to are less compelling than if it's been an adventure that I've participated in or run or at least read through.
I think if you're running a homebrew game and you're running it with the same players for years, and you've built your own lore and your players know your lore, it would work. I don't think homebrew is the gold standard, and a lot of people look down on published adventures, and I don't think they should. I think they serve a purpose.
Absolutely. And the secret is like it's your version of the lore. It's all just a springboard. It's a jumping off point. You're doing a lot of homebrew
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, my version of the Undermountain was a game show. It's not how Wizards of the Coast ran it, but that's how I ran it.
Maybe they should have.
Yeah. Okay. How much preparation is necessary before starting a published adventure? Like, do you think you'd need to read an entire book before running, or is it step by step? Or, I mean, some of these books are massive.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I will say you don't have to read the entire book to start running an adventure if you're new out there. Also, if you're new out there, don't start by running a 200-300 page adventure. Get yourself a one shot. Hey, I sell some, but you can also get those for free. The real answer depends on who you are as a person. I like to know the important beats coming up in the future. I like to know where things are going. So depending on the adventure, like right now for one of my tables, I'm running Ghost of Saltmarsh, and it is fairly episodic. There's some big overarching plot lines that I want to keep an eye on. But with an adventure like that, I really only have to be one chapter ahead. I'll read the whole thing to start, but I actually don't. I do a ton. I front load my prep pretty hard. I make sure that I have a very good understanding of what the world is and what the factions want. And then I'm less concerned what's the next thing that's going to happen. The player's going to determine. I used to go crazy, almost like to the point of like making flow charts. If this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. I have really freed myself from that. And again, that same, I called it a flaw, but like doing less in prep as well. I'm concerned about the major beats, and then also like minor details that are cool, sure, but I don't need to be that ahead of the players, because then I'm not beholden to that. I can adapt to what the players do
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah, I skim read it, or I watch. There's quite often a YouTube video out there that will just tell you the basic bones of the story.
Mm.
I think a guy, he has a channel called D&D Walkthrough, and he does most of the famous published adventures. I'll watch that and I'll get a sense of, okay, this is where the story's going. This is the important NPCs I probably need to introduce. But yeah, I'm the same. I don't sit down and read. Especially, you can't just read a 26 room dungeon and then remember. You're just filling your brain with unnecessary information that you don't need until maybe 4 or 5 sessions later. So why cram? You don't. I think these bigger books for a newer DM can be overwhelming. So there are plenty of the anthology books are great. I would
I'm a big
recommend.
fan.
Yeah,
That's the
Tales from
right
the Yawning Portal.
size.
Yeah, there's plenty of them now. They're probably the best published books in my opinion that WotC have published.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost of Saltmarsh is technically one of those. They're it's a little more interconnected, maybe less so than some people want. That's something that but again, that's where even if it's a published adventure, a pre-published adventure, you are doing some degree of homebrew. And I just find it easier when it's a pre-published, especially like a loose anthology kind of adventure scenario, to include the players in that homebrewing, world building side of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I know WotC do supply these sort of, with the anthologies, they do supply potential ways of connecting them, but in my opinion, those have been pretty weak. Like the one for Golden Vault was terrible. The one for Infinite Staircase is just not even worth mentioning. The one for Yawning Portal, you go back to the tavern every time and hear another rumor and then go out again. So
and never enter Undermountain. Like, come on, first thing going down, because I did a couple videos on well, I did the first couple adventures in Yawning Portal because I really like it, and like right out of the gate I was like, don't show them that well because they're going to want to go down there, and now you're going to throw all this away, which as a experienced dungeon master I'm into. But for a new person running, the Sunless Citadel as their introductory adventure, and they do hours and hours and hours of preparation, and then they start the adventure in front of a different dungeon. What are we talking about here, guys?
Dragon Heist is the same. That starts with the Yawning Portal and doesn't tell your players to go down there. I was very conscious about that. I ended up prepping the first few rooms of Undermountain just in case, but I foreshadowed that by I made sure that there was a bunch of adventurers going down the well just as they entered, and I mentioned how they looked very much more experienced than you. And then I had them just horrendously screaming, bits of their body parts cut flying out of the well. So just to sort of foreshadow, yeah, this is a bad place. You probably aren't ready. Yeah,
love that.
Yeah, just maybe stay away from the murder hole. Okay. How do you balance staying true to an adventure's structure while still making it your own?
By letting go of either of those things. I'm not too worried. I use the structure when it serves me. It's always going to be my own, and I'm sharing it with the players too. So it's never going to be my own.
Yeah.
So yeah, but both and neither. I kind of let go of those concepts in the first place, so that I'm more interested in the what happens at the table, the emerging story. I am also playing this game. I am also open to learning things and being surprised, even though I'm the game master, even though I'm running the thing. The interesting part is not what's happening in prep. I mean, sometimes it is, but the coolest moments happen at the table, and the more I leave room for them, the more likely those moments are going to have an impact when they happen, and in the future going forward, where I don't have my own idea or the book's idea on such a pedestal that I'm not willing to change it.
Yeah. I kind of just changed. So I started running the first adventure in Keys from the Golden Vault, which is a museum heist. I decided to set that in Waterdeep. That went down really well, and then I was like, okay, what do I do? And I read the next chapter of Golden Vault, and it didn't kind of gel with where we were. So I then introduced the first chapter of Dragon Heist, and then we started playing that. And then all of a sudden they wanted to go down the well, and then that suddenly became Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And then they got infatuated with Skullport, which isn't even mentioned in that. Well, it's briefly mentioned at the end of the book, but it's not given any sort of real structure or adventure. So then I had to print something off the DM's Guild, an old second edition adventure for the Skullport. So yeah, just because of players' decisions, it just constantly kept switching different published adventures on me. So yeah, I guess you have to, like you say, you have to change with your table, don't you?
And that's kind of my origin story of being like vocally pro published adventures, is that I like a big open world. So my answer is both, right? Like there's a bunch of homebrew components, and I will fall back on those if I second level, I gave my party a boat. Oh, you got a boat. You can go in, you can do the next thing that I think you're going to do, or you can sail away, and I have to make up an island.
Or an inconvenience. An inconvenience till you could get more context.
Whoops, Kraken. Can't go that way. But but the idea of having so much freaking content, right? Like if the recipe for a sandbox, which I don't know if I agree with, is having 3 times as much content as you need. If you're homebrewing that content, that sucks. One, to do, and 2, just like emotionally to throw away 2/3 of what you created. But if 2/3 of what you created isn't you, it's just WotC adventures that you know the gist of and can insert and then prep, just staying one step ahead of the players. You can do something like that. You can switch between 3 of those big books and not completely burn out as a dungeon master.
Yeah. What are your tips for integrating players' backstories into pre-written adventures?
Looking for the connections, not going whole cloth. Like the not to shamelessly plug myself too much, but the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation.
I set this up. I did actually set this up for you.
Oh, did you? Okay, cool. I can't not take the swing at it. You teed this up too nicely.
Segue, mate.
It was. I blew it. I'm sorry. I called attention to it now. No one's gonna.
We can start again.
I can do it. It's cool. Let them know that I'm uncomfortable promoting myself. I don't know why. Ask my therapist. The original title, the working title, was Connections. And I was convinced, mostly by my wife, that sounded like a sociology or an anthropology textbook or something.
Or dating it.
Yeah, that too. Ooh, maybe that's a missed opportunity, actually. But I think it's that middle ground, right? Like a player shows up at the table with a novel of a backstory. No, thank you. You got a 1 page of bullet points. Okay, where does this overlap with the published adventure, the homebrew world, whatever the case is? If I could take this NPC's role and assign it to the significant character in your backstory, bingo bango. Now you care about what's happening here. You have a vested interest, which is so often lacking. That's the secret to getting player buy-in, is to make it relevant to the characters. There's a lot of advice to figure out what the players like and serve it up to them, and sure, yes, but also, hey, your character cares about this because that's their old boss. And okay, you hate that guy, you want to kill him, or you want to save him from the big bad evil guy. Whatever the case, that's your sister out there. You're trying to get a job with these people. You are whatever. This is your religious order sending you on the mission, not just the anonymous job board here.
Yeah, one of the most satisfying ones I had was I had this girl that I was playing with, and she was playing a Goliath barbarian, and she ran away from her tribe because she was in an arranged marriage that she didn't want to be in, so she decided to become an adventurer. So I made one of the red brands her husband that was chasing after her. one of the thugs in Vandalin, and it was perfect because it just when you're trying to draw in the book, it tells you to have the red brands sort of mess with the players to drag them into the red brown hideout. So that particular moment in the adventure just was so cool. It just turned into this kind of domestic argument in the middle of Vandalin, which was real. It was a lot of fun, and I think she actually might have got rid of a few issues she had built up. So
work some stuff out on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's make it personal.
Yeah,
like the whole book was designed to do that, and it happens. It's not just the dungeon master's job, and it's not just the player's job. It happens collaboratively between the two, and that's why those 2-page spreads are this is the player side, this is the dungeon master side. But there's a lot of bleed. There's a lot of carryover there. So the dungeon master isn't the only person creating content, and that's how you get bad dungeon masters and bad players.
I think you need to have that in a session 0. So in a session 0, if you are running, I know we'll probably keep banging on about Lost Mine of Phandelver, but if you are running Lost Mine of Phandelver, that adventure is going to work for you so much better if your players have a connection to Gundren Rockseeker or Silda Hallwinter or Phandalin. So you need to have that conversation. This is the story, and you guys need to have a connection. And if you can provide a little bit of information, okay, so Gundren used to have this job and used to do this or whatever. And using your book as a great source of inspiration for a session 0 as well. But
yeah, I've actually had Kelf, Kelf. He took it out for a session 0 with one of his groups, and they just they never actually played D&D. They just figured out where the story would go, and that's pretty gratifying because I didn't think of it as a standalone game. Very specifically, I made a supplement that'll plug into a bunch of different games. But yeah, you can use these tools to very satisfyingly tell stories and maybe not even bring the mechanics into it. And yeah, that's one of the earliest and most impactful things I think I say in that series of Lost Mine of Phandelver is get the players to care about Gundren or something. Gundren's the easiest way, and it's the first thing. And for a starter set, it does a very bad job making that relevant to the new dungeon master. If your player, you need your players to care about this. You need your players' characters to care in some way, somehow. And yeah, that's why I wrote 100 different giant spreads to do that.
Yeah. Dragon Heist works really well for that. That gives, because you give the players a tavern in that book, and spoilers for the adventure. You then blow it up. And nothing motivates a group more than giving them something nice and then taking it away.
Yes. Let them get invested.
Yeah. Which, yeah. Okay. I think we've possibly covered this, but I think this is one of the most popular questions I see in sort of comment sections when it comes to running published adventures is, how do you handle moments when players go off script or skip vital content?
I think having more content and having other published adventures in your back pocket is a good way is one quick, good, dirty way to do that. I think figuring out why. Well, it's almost two questions there, right? If they skip something, they don't engage with something, is it not interesting enough? Or is it one particular player who's being obtuse and a jerk and refusing to? Because it's also, I love presenting a big open world and giving my players options and letting them walk off into the sunset. But I'm also out of game, over the table, willing to say, hey, if you do this, it's going to be a lot less cool for everybody because I don't know what's over there. And sure, I'm the kind of guy, I'm willing to populate it for you. But guess what? The interesting stuff is going to be where this big blinking arrow that I placed in front of you is pointing. So you can straight up tell them, especially if you're a new dungeon master who doesn't have something ready to rock to insert. You can tell your players, not the characters, but the players, hey, I would appreciate it if you played the game that I prepared for you. But yeah, I think having more and more content ready to go, and that just comes with experience, right? Like there's so many things that I've run in the past that I could just like at least wing, make up on the spot, bring up, and just like insert adventure here. But that's because I've been doing this for years. That's a privilege and a luxury. If you don't have that available to you, then I think straight up telling the people that you're sitting around a table to have fun with, probably that's the idea, right? It's to be like, hey, it's going to be a lot less fun for me, but also for you, but especially for me, guys. So like, I did a lot of work, and I'm a busy person with a lot of things going on, and I took time out of my busy schedule to prepare a cool thing for you. It would be nice if you did that. Otherwise, we can go play a different game or something.
I'm glad this is something that has now been addressed in the new DMG about the social contract, and I'm glad it is addressed. But yeah, like you say, it does come with experience. So you could, if someone's going a certain direction and you've got nothing prepared and you haven't run Lost Mine of Phandelver before, then you could probably, pull Cragmore hideout out of your ass.
Yeah.
Just put a wagon there, and then suddenly you've got a dungeon. And there's nothing wrong, I think, as well with moving things. Just because an adventure says this particular encounter only happens if they go in this particular direction, and that's all you've got prepared. There's nothing wrong with moving that encounter and making it work in the opposite direction or in the opposite place. I do that all the time.
I do that on purpose. Like I've been running a lot. I've been running a little stricter now that we're like system testing. I've been playing a bunch of different games, and now I'm playing a new edition of D&D. So I have more spoons on the mechanical side of things. But a couple of years ago, the game I was running was mostly homebrew with a bunch of pre-published stuff peppered into it, but it was run by random tables. Everything was, and random's even the wrong word, but everything was determined by chance. Wide open world, you guys pick a direction, it's a sandbox, you start walking there, cool, there's a table for these different compass points. I don't know what you're going to find when you go there. I know where like big landmarks are, but I don't know who's walking on this road right now, but somebody is, and we're going to find out together. And that's my kind of D&D as a player and as a dungeon master. Like, ooh, I'm way more engaged than just making sure that what the book says is what happens. I never play that way.
That absolutely terrifies me. I know AJ plays a bit like that. That would probably be one of my flaws, to be able to. I'd love to be able to do that, and I have tried to do that, and it was one of my worst experiences as a game master. I almost had like hives from just being so anxious.
Interesting.
I can't. It doesn't. I'd love to be like that, but it's not in my nature, and I can't. Yeah, I can't do it.
I think. Well, it's not for. I mean, it's definitely my style, my preference, and yeah, it's not for everybody. I don't want to make you feel bad. Again, I'm not like this is the best way to do it, but I love it. And if you haven't even thought about trying it, I think you should, dear listener. But I think it comes down to most random tables are bad. Like I rolled the dice, D6 goblins. What? Okay, fight goblins. This is boring. I don't know what this is bad. But like, if I already know, like, you're walking into this forest, this is the goblin tribe that lives in that forest. I just don't know if you're going to run into one of these three bands of those goblins. Like, it's more, I've prepared an interesting. Everything's in a quantum state. Everything's in a waveform. It's not just like, here's one encounter. Here's what's happening in this environment, and then assigning. I like a bell curve too. I like 2d6 tables. We're getting into the weeds a little bit with this.
No, it's fine.
But the idea, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Some of these events are more likely than others, but it's essentially, I'm unpacking a dungeon, right? If you think of a 5-room dungeon, right? These are the 5 things that are happening in this location. And I'm now just determining what the order is, and I don't know what the next room is. What the players do is probably going to determine that. If not, then a roll of the dice is. And that works in outdoor environments much easier than a place with a floor plan with a map you have to draw. But that's how I would try to do it. You don't need rolling a D100 table that you haven't prepared for yourself. Like, oh, this is a good one. It's 2d6 goblins and 1d6 wolves. Ooh, interesting. Like, having it be like, these are the Kragmaw. They are at war with this other tribe of like psionic goblins, and these orcs are in on their territory.
Yeah.
Now you show up, here are the goblins, or here's a dragon flying overhead, or here's the cult of the dragon looking for the dragon that could have flown overhead. Just make it more dynamic and organic and emergent. Gets my juices flowing, obviously, because I'm just talking too much about it now.
I like it to be well. Yeah, Ryan has some great random encounter books on the DM's Guild as well. I think he have one they're all for different environments like forest or hill. I've used a few. I approach it totally different. So, for example, on the Lost Mine of Phandelver adventure, when the players leave Vandalin and head towards wherever they want to go, what side quest they're following, there's a chart there with 3 or 4 random encounters. And yeah, to me, some of them don't suit the adventure. So I like it to make sense in the world I'm in. So I'll focus in on those or go, okay, I like the one with the hobgoblins and the event. So I'm going to have that. So I will spend my time fleshing that encounter out. I still give my players the illusion that it's a random encounter by kind of like faking it. So I pretend I'm rolling dice behind the screen. I already know what the encounter is, just so they think I'm better at my job. I don't know what that I need to do that or whatever. But yeah, in my mind, I'm already prepared. And just because I've fleshed that out, and I can give that just a bit more connectivity to my world that I'm building, and I can put in more breadcrumbs so I can put in breadcrumbs now that I want to hint at this, maybe this future thing that if they do come across this lines up with this and this all makes sense. And so I guess I still overthink these things a little bit, but it's what I'm comfortable. Yeah, it's how I'm comfortable with dealing with it.
It's stylistic, right? So that, I forget off the top of my head if it's a D6 or a D8, but there's that random encounter table in Lost Mine of Phandelver, and there's one like relevant encounter, and it's a great one. Like, here's a pack of hobgoblins. They're looking for you. They have a wanted poster with it says one of you. I always make it all everybody.
Yeah, I don't tell them the same. I'll just like describe the character like it's
it's just like a stick drawing, and it's terrible, but it's clearly them, and like it's so good. And so like having even having that, and just like rolling, like these goblins are out there, and
my players autographed it. We're famous.
We're somebody now.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, it brings me joy to, I know that they're out there, and it's just like, maybe I'm rolling a D6, and on a 6, they show up, right? It doesn't have to be one is a useless, like, oh, these zombies got out of the tower and killed them, or like
there's a bunch of skeletons in the road for no reason.
Like that's the random part of random encounters that people don't like. I think chance encounters, right? This is relevant. This is integral to the story that we're telling, but I don't even know when it's going to happen. That's exciting. Like any given moment, you have a whatever you decide, a 5% chance that these hobgoblins are going to find you. And guess what? Waste your time. I'm rolling that 5% chance again. I mean, that's part of why random encounters are in the DNA of this game. It makes time relevant. Like, these guys are chasing you. They're going to find you eventually. If you guys just sit here and whatever.
But saying that, some adventures, you don't want to run something, for example, like Tyranny of Dragons. There's a notoriously bad chapter in that book, which is just where they travel for almost 3 weeks up the Sword Coast. And it's no one likes running it because it's just boring. Nothing much happens. So sometimes you can just skip that just with a monologue. You don't need to run random encounters. Just make a monologue of that journey.
And put one relevant encounter. Put 2 relevant encounters in that. The same thing with, they're bad at exploration these days. They don't really understand how to make it happen. Like Storm King's Thunder really lags in the middle there. Exploring the Hexcrawl of Chult is not fun at all unless you fix it. In Tomb of Annihilation. But I cracked the code, at least for me. And some of my players' best moments were like memories from that campaign where you stumble upon something and now what do you do about it, right? It's not just here's this troll. He lives under the bridge, of course, right? And he's going to charge you a toll if you cross that. But he's also sometimes he's on the move. So like, I think it was the first session of that campaign. They level 1 players ran into a troll, rolled the troll, which is like exciting for me as a dungeon master. Like, oh shit, I'm gonna wipe these guys out. We just spent all this time creating these characters, and I'm gonna kill them in the first 5 minutes.
I even know what this is in one of your books.
Yeah. Oh, he's out there. He's in the book. Gang. I mean, I practice what I preach. I put dragons on these. I'll have a young dragon. Usually, it's the snake eyes. If you roll a 2 on a d12, which is a slim chance, it's like less than a 1 on a d20. But it's there. But it doesn't mean that the dragon attacks, right? That troll didn't attack them. They saw they heard the troll coming. They dive into the woods. You're in the woods. There's cover. They take cover. They roll well on their stealth checks. The troll goes past. That could be it. And we continue on to what I thought we were going to do, but they followed the troll. And now they find out where his bridge is. They explore more of the map. I describe this whole... I don't know how deep I get into it's been a while since I actually like wrote that published thing, but like I described he's got this hut and he's got these like nightmare dream catchers made out of bones hanging from all the trees. He's got the bridge itself like trapped to make noise if you approach.
I'm getting Robert Eggers vibes, mate.
Yeah. It was I completely stole it from True Detective. That first season of True Detective.
I was thinking the witch.
Yeah, same vibes.
Yeah.
And now I was way more engaged and the players were way more engaged because they know they're playing with fire. They know that Ryan didn't plan for this, that anything could happen right now. We're off the rails. It's not controlled. We're playing without a net here. If we screw up, we could all die. And I think they pushed their luck. The troll took their money and kicked him out, basically. Like, this is undefeatable. You're not even a threat to me. Give me the 6 gold pieces that you have in your starting equipment. I'll see you in 3 levels. Go enjoy the starting adventure, you chumps. And they hated that guy, and beating him in a month was incredible. It was one of the best troll fights I've ever run because it was important. It's so hard to get returning bad guys without making things incredibly overmatched for the players. But if they know that and they feel that above the game, like, hey guys, look, I didn't know that you were going to get a CR for a creature right now, but that's what the dice said, so be careful.
And it teaches them fight or flee tactics as well, which is a good thing they need to learn as a player. They should sometimes running away. Disengage is an action for a reason.
Yeah. If it's in front of me because I can, like, if I can always kill the thing, that's a much less interesting game for me as a player and for most of the players at my table.
Yeah. Okay. What are some of the common pitfalls DMs should avoid when using published adventures?
Throwing dragons at level 1 party. No, I'm sorry.
Citadel, I'm looking at you.
I mean, Sunless Citadel, Thunder Tree, but like also what I was just saying, like I'm willing to do that because I'm an experienced DM and I have experienced players who know that if it's in front of, and I tell them if it's in front of you, you don't necessarily have the right to kill it. It might wipe you out. So yeah, that's a common pitfall. I'd think
killing level 1 players isn't bad. I mean, it's not. If it's their first game, it might not be a great introduction to the game, but sometimes it's the only chance you do have to kill them.
I had a TPK. I had a near TPK for my latest campaign, and I was like, sorry, but like that's what happened. I roll in the open, like it's all very. I didn't set out to do it, but it just happened. So I think fearing the TPK is also maybe a beginner pitfall. But if it's someone's first night playing Dungeons and Dragons, you don't want to destroy their hopes and dreams immediately.
No. You're entering a competition stage then, and they'll start to think the game is a competition and you're against them.
Yes, which is bad. As far as the question goes, I think the thing published adventures are the worst at generally. There's some really awesome exceptions to this, but as a rule, especially if it's coming out of WotC, doesn't do a great job getting player character buy-in. The world's going to end, but I don't care. I'm just here to get gold. And like, why doesn't this guy solve it? There's titled NPCs. I've read a novel about this guy. He should do it. Getting the players to give a shit, getting the player characters to be invested. That's where I would put all of the energy you would have used home brewing this like bespoke world, put that into getting the world that you're handed connected to those player characters, and that's going to get them invested, keep them moving, and keep interesting things happening.
Yeah. Session 0.
Yes,
You're
yes,
advocate
but
for that.
I
Yeah.
am an advocate for the contents of a session 0. I'm an advocate for sitting down with new people and being like, hey, in this game, anything can happen. If there's something that you don't want to happen for reasons you don't even have to explain to me, that's cool. Here's an opportunity to do that. If it comes up later, I'm open to hearing about it.
Yeah.
The reason I do that is twofold. One, so if someone's got PTSD from some childhood trauma or some shit, like I can swap out the scorpion for some other monster. It's no sweat off my back. And I don't want to be responsible for them having a panic
No.
attack at my table, or I don't know, working out some childhood trauma at my table. Like, I'm not a psychologist. I'm trying to blow off steam. I don't want, like, I'm just here to have fun, man. I don't want to open up that can of worms if we don't have to.
I don't want to run a horny game. That's my.
I'll say that at my one of the games is at a public game shop with a bunch of strangers, predominantly men. Which whatever, if that's your thing, cool, but it's not mine. So like, yeah, I'll throw that out there. Like, you want, like, anything goes as far as I'm concerned. Sex is going to happen off screen. I'm not here to flirt with you. So if you start hitting on my NPCs, like, it's not going anywhere. That's not my idea of fun. Ha 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 ha. But the second reason I have that conversation is because if someone at the table freaks out at the idea of having compassion for other people, I know I don't want them at my table, right? And there's like there's a very specific tirade. I've gotten in trouble for saying their words, because there's different ways to get there, but it's a certain type of person with a certain type of mindset, a certain belief system and talking points, at least that I here in America have had negative reactions to the very idea of considering that some people might have a problem with something.
Game shop dungeon mastering is totally different than home dungeon mastering. It's probably another topic within itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like live streaming and game shops and conventions, and it's different than what you're doing at your home game, which is important. If you've only ever watched live streams and you're thinking about playing D&D, it's a different sport. Right? You're going to go play horse with your friends. Don't be sad that you're not NBA level, gang. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, don't come at me because I'm not Matt Mason, mate.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not Laura Bailey. Like, you get what you get.
You get what you paid for.
Yeah, exactly. You buy me some pretzels and we'll talk. So like, I'll up my game a little bit, but I'm bringing a lot more to the table than anybody else. So yeah, don't get mad at me.
I don't really have to have session zeros as such with one of my groups now because we've been playing together so long. We know each other's style and all that. So it's more just now sent out in a group message of, hey, we're playing this game. It's set in this location. It's this theme. I need your characters to be connected to one of these things.
Yeah. The flip side is I don't think it's not a session. At least I'm not interested in having that conversation for 3 hours. Again, you don't have to tell me what happened in your life that makes you have arachnophobia or whatever the heck it is. I don't need you to explain to me why, whatever. Like, no, thank you. It doesn't. I think calling it session 0 was a mistake.
I'm a bit annoyed they put that in the DMG and not the player's handbook. They put it back on us. That should have been something that was also mentioned in the new player's handbook. I'm glad they have mentioned it. Yes. But once again, we are saddled with the responsibility of the conversation.
Which is wild. Like, a dungeon master is doing so much already, and then there's all these like other soft skills that they're expected to step up. And it's a collect. There's 6 people at the table. One person has already done most of the homework. Why is it also their job to solve the interpersonal problems that are not covered by you put a paragraph in the game rules, cool. But like, yeah, that doesn't have to be, that's the whole table's job. That's not just the dungeon master's job.
Cool. All right. Okay. What is your favorite published adventure? What makes it stand out?
Woof. Depending on when you ask me, this answer will change. But I'm in love with Dolmenwood. I mean, that's kind of cheating. So I'll say that's not an adventure, but like Winter's Daughter. But I ran a campaign in Dolmenwood recently, and it's just that's my kind of like folkloric, fey touched. Everything's funny but sinister. There's real consequences. F around, and you'll find out. Everything is interconnected in a meaningful way. You kick over a rock, and not just like encounters emerge, but like stories emerge. This person will send you on a quest on the other side of the map, and it all makes sense. There's so much thought into it. Second choice for a much shorter encounter that people could like pick up. Waking of Willoughby Hall, Ben Milton's adventure, which you can run. I've run for in 5e and Old School Essentials, and like for new people, kind of like, sure, this is D&D, roll dice, but the Waking of Willoughby Hall is wonderful. So good. It teaches how important it is to have interactive things in the game. Like, talk about choices and consequences. Like, every room, there's 2 or 3 things. All of those things do stuff, tell part of the greater story. It's beautiful design. And it can go 7, 8 different ways. It's not like you're trying to get the players to the last room. There's so many different ways that little like one shot can end. It's great.
Nice. I think you've done a YouTube video on that one, haven't you?
I haven't, and I meant to.
Oh.
I should. It's on the. I did Winter's Daughter. I did a Winter's Daughter one.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't done one on Questing Beasts, Waking of Willoughby Hall. Maybe because he has, but
Yeah.
I should. I really should. I should. He's I don't know him personally, but he's great people. I like his vibe. But 2, yeah, it's a great adventure.
Nice. All right, mate. Thank you. Yeah. Anything you'd like to plug before we get out of here?
You know what? I didn't mention my book, so check that out. It's available on Drive-Thru-RPG in print and PDF. It's just cool. If you're homebrewing or you're trying to make a published
I don't
adventure,
think you mentioned the name of it, to be honest.
The Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation is the name of the book. Explosive Creation is the tagline. It doesn't tell you what to do.
Not connections.
Not connections, folks. Subtitle: Connections. Explosive Creation, because you can roll literally a fistful of dice. It's one of everything. You throw it on the page. You get a really interesting character, like backstory, connections to the world, and it's like, at least in my opinion, the right amount of information. It's just bullet points. They're evocative but open-ended. It's very easy for them to click into each other, the other character stuff, the Game Master's world, the pre-published adventure, whatever the case may be. It's just awesome. Check it out. There's a big old. I put the entirety of the introduction and a few of the tables up on the preview on the Drive-Thru RPG, so you can check them out.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks, mate. Thanks for taking time out of your busy Friday night and coming to have a chat with me.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. I'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully we can. We'll have you on again, and AJ can join us. Okay, so yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, help feed the algorithm beast. Helps get us out there and all that. I always forget to promote. I'm useless at the promoting side of this business.
It's my least favorite part. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Share the love of this D&D podcast, which I'm going to say has the best intro music, theme song out of any of them. So let the world go, folks.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, I'm really proud of that. Sweet. All right. Until next time. Keep rolling them 20s. I stole that from Fred and I forgot to ask permission, but I need a new catchphrase. It's better to ask forgiveness than permission. So yeah, Fred will come at me in the comments afterwards. Cool. Thanks, everyone.